One, like Queens was primarily like Puerto Rican or something like that, and Brooklyn was primarily like Jewish, and then it was.
Yeah, that's right. When we were in the Netherlands, my next door neighbors, they have the Foschen in the southern part of the Netherlands, they're all Catholic, and Limburg province. So our next door neighbors invited us out one night for Foschen. You know, I wouldn't been out for a few hours, and we were in this one bar, and this town is a very small town, Schinveld. Had a couple of thousand people. This one lady had been into the cups big time. She was on top of the table dancing and singing. And she's got a costume on, mask and drapery, you know. If it wasn't for her voice, you wouldn't even be able to tell whether she was man or woman. Mm. So Bella, my neighbor, says, "That's Umpty Ump." And I said, "Oh, Bella, how can you tell who she is?" She says, "I can tell by her accent." The lady came from Schinnen, which was 5 kilometers up the road.
No way.
Because you that. And an accent that was discernible from the accent of people from Schinveld.
What is this? What is that word you were saying? They were celebrating
Fasching. It's carnival.
carnival. Oh, okay.
Should we try and get Yoshi in here and get the sisters
Germany.
talking?
Yeah.
Germany and Netherlands.
We are recording for posterity.
Northern.
I want to hear you.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh my
Foschen.
goodness.
And
I'm not gonna die.
south,
I didn't say it was
Same thing.
recording for death.
But don't record this, but anyway, I wanted to say that this man used to come with a vegetable truck to in Hayward. I don't know how often he came,
we went to Midnight Mass.
but every time I would tell them he used to bring tofu and whatever, but I used to call him, they used to say tofu-yasan for some reason.
Johnny.
Tofu yasan?
Yeah, or something. So I say, "Mr. Tofu-yasan, it's my birthday." So he would give me a candy, maybe it's 3 for a penny at that time or 2. And then my mother and father would say, don't do that, you know. But then the next time he would call, I would say, "Mr. Tofu-yasan, this is my birthday." You know, he comes every two.
Most of these people
But they would tell me after, but not before when he was coming. He would tell me. But I would say that to him every time. And I guess that man must have known or something. But I
Of
was,
course he knew. He just loved you.
but I used to tell him, he used to
Thought
say
it was
that to me.
sweet.
That was that awful that I used to do as a
No,
kid.
that's like a kid thing.
So when they
I think that's really sweet.
everybody's out on the sidewalk watching the parade, right? When they got to our house, we had him stop his wagon or whatever it was. He started throwing us candy and little necklaces and beads.
Oh, that's
Do you
great.
guys have Wi-Fi?
That's great.
Would you be inclined to tell me your Wi-Fi code?
Oh, no. Sorry.
That was,
I don't know anything about it.
that was,
Would Larry be inclined to tell me his Wi-Fi code? I wouldn't have to use up my data?
I don't have a Wi-Fi card.
No
Don't we
Wi-Fi.
have Wi-Fi?
Huh?
Don't we have Wi-Fi?
We don't use it. I never came up with a code. You mean for the smartphone?
I don't know.
You want to get into the internet?
No. I was wondering if you had
That's-
Wi-Fi so I wouldn't have to use up my data.
Yeah, get into the internet and you would have a little thing that has an antenna on it that broadcasts around the house.
No.
Okay, never mind
They're
then.
just connected in there.
I'm
Okay,
hardwired into
gotcha.
AT&T and
That's
somebody, Infinity, I guess.
Yep.
That's it. I just use email.
You use that.
I decided a few years ago that technologically speaking, I was going to make everything simple for myself and her. We have email. You can search the web. Nothing else, right?
Do you have a cell phone?
We have a
No.
cell phone.
I do have one, but I don't use
But who uses it? I
Do you
have a
use
cell
your cell
phone.
phone?
And, I know how to text. I know how to send emails.
I like
I
squirrels.
try not to go out.
They
Try to
were eating
keep
your
away
fruit,
from
you
the
wouldn't
internet.
like it so much.
Yeah,
You can
as
have
much as I
cupcakes.
can.
Yeah. Well,
That squirrel,
um,
I thought it just caught a tail out of it.
we
One of
trimmed the
them.
tree.
Oh, dear.
And
I love
This
the
one
squirrels
down.
outside.
This one down.
Yeah, because
I love
when I
them.
go to buy it now.
And they make holes in the
It
grass.
can be, right,
and I
yeah.
still love them anyway.
Yeah.
They dig around, because we don't have a dog.
Surprised it doesn't go that wide.
So they go in the backyard and they hide things and then they come back and get them.
And the thing is, they aren't
Love
as
the
good as the
squirrels.
one from yesterday.
I was
They're all
amazed.
been touched, they're soft and all that.
They forget about 20% of
Closes
the
place.
stuff.
They do.
They don't know, they don't remember where they
So
put
I
it.
think
Kind of like us.
Doesn't really fit them too well. Or maybe we should go from where my sister is.
Me coming in.
That might be too
me-
far.
Yeah, you could sit here.
Me going from here to there and then saying, why did I come here? I think that's one of the other side effects of that. I said, oh, that'll last about 6 months too.
good pop.
She looked at me.
So I don't know, where should we start? Should we just have start about,
We have some tape
Kids?
to put
Okay,
our
remember
necks
that.
back.
So I might.
But you
go
guys
from
can tell you
here.
who you are.
By the time I got up and got around and got up.
your name?
Is that too
That
much to
happens all the
ask?
time.
Oh, no.
That's frustrating.
Go ahead, yes.
Me,
Names and
I'm Yoshi
things I
Harmony
can't
Miller,
remember. People I,
and I'm.
I should know it, right?
80 years old.
89 years old.
Maybe it'll
So
come
when
back
were you born?
over time.
March
And
You're
then,
just you're just able to stop sleeping so much, right?
1926.
yeah, but she's
1927.
pretty average.
I thought your birthday was on the
What if
4th
you
or
do this?
something like that.
You decided to go in the kitchen and you're here right now. Carry around a pan of pizza. And
Shows us this.
then by the time you get there, you'll go, oh yeah, I wrote it down.
Yeah.
But it's the same like hers. She
That's good.
celebrated in May, on May 3rd, and she saw it on
I
the
just said, well,
birth
that's really
certificate, your
comforting.
birth certificate says May
Go
1st.
back here and sit down and say, oh.
Second.
Oh, good.
So your birth certificate is wrong?
Okay.
No, my birth
Oh, that's
certificate was
Like I was
right, but
trying to describe to
at home,
somebody
they always celebrated on the
not long
3rd.
ago.
Then when I went to college, I had turned in my
Cranial
birth
radiation.
certificate and it said May 2nd.
Why
My
did
mom told me that, and I thought it makes sense because back then, I mean, you already got 7 kids. You have a kid. You're like, okay, great, we have a kid. Then a year later, you're like, oh crap, it's that youngest one's birthday. When's her birthday? We're like, oh yeah, that day we went to the store, and then oh,
It's there.
So that's why she
Okay,
celebrates
that's
even
good.
in
That's real.
today.
That's right, and so your birthday is different than the 8th, your birth certificate, isn't it? It's not the 8th. It is?
or maybe you celebrated on a different day before.
So I celebrate all year.
Yeah.
We usually celebrate it in June.
But Mom, what were you saying about tacos? That there was a dog crying or something in the morning, or before she was
Yeah,
born?
and then all this was going on, and she was born, and then wasn't there something in the backyard, there was a dog or something that was caught somewhere next door or something, and somebody helped rescue the dog or something in the backyard?
Oh, we had lots of things going on. We
Yeah.
had 8
Eventful
kids
day.
with him, there's something going on.
No, but just on the day that Taco was born, was there something going on?
Oh, I'll tell you a funny story.
So was Taka born at home?
Yes, Tachi was the only one that was born at Hayward Hospital. All of us, the rest of us were, what do you call those?
Midwife.
Midwife.
They call him Samba-san.
And then the,
A what?
Samba-san.
Ah.
oh, and so then, I don't know how long she stayed, but all the rest of us were born at home.
I'm sorry, you're going to say a story?
I forgot.
I share your pain.
And,
I was going to say?
Funny story.
and lady,
I thought you were talking about what was going on while Taco was born or something.
No.
maybe?
There were a lot of
lady, who
you.
are you?
Huh?
Who are you and when were you born?
I am the oldest of the lower half, and that's why I had the significance.
And what's your
Because
name?
there was 8 of us, so there was 4 above me,
Uh-huh.
and so then I was the 5th child. So I used to say, they said, well, where are you in the group? And I said, I'm the oldest of the lower half, and I used to feel big about that.
Well, remember, I was the one that was babysitting all of you. Because the oldest brother and Nico and Chico, they were all, my father taught them all kinds of things. But when it came to me, I was the fourth one. And so they did all kinds of things where I was the oldest of the younger ones, and I did all the babysitting, and I did the teaching. Remember,
You had to
I
be
was a teacher
responsible.
all the time. We sat behind those little boxes. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
Well, you didn't do a very good job on me.
Yeah, but she
I
was
didn't know anything.
no, it's not you and Hayo in that part. But I know you and Chosen was more. Because you were the youngest, and you were the difference of 8 years difference between you and me. Yeah.
And the funny story about her is that when we went to Topaz, that she said, it's time to go home. We were in camp, and she said, it's time to go home. She was tired of being in Japanese. So she must have thought we were in a different country or something. Don't you think that's hilarious? I think that's a good one.
Who was that?
She just wanted to go home.
Yeah. She said
Well,
she was
because
tired
it
of
was
being.
all these Japanese people.
Right?
So she must have thought we were in a different country, I think.
Who was that?
She was what, 5 or 6 years old, so she didn't know.
And where you guys lived in Hayward, it was all Portuguese, right? It was all that?
All kinds of people.
Yeah, because we had Germans next door and then Scotch people next door. Oh, I know what I was going to say. My brother, Chico, he wanted to go to the football game, so he said he assigned her, me, and Harry to milk the goat. But she says, okay, she said she gave us jobs, and we had to hold the one leg or what the other leg was, and then she said she will milk the goat or whatever it was. And she says, okay, when I'm out the gate, then I will tell you when to leave, you know. So here we are, my brother and me, and we're the little ones, but I used to make it faster, and boy, I would scramble up the fence and get over the fence. But my brother, that was 2 years younger than me, he used to get bumped on the bottom with the goat.
Oh, because once you let go of the legs,
Yes.
you all have to run at the same time?
Yeah, he and I had to, but she
Yeah,
was
but I
already,
was carrying the milk, so that I had
she had to go out first. So I think these are funny stories.
So she made it out, and then she'd say go, and then you'd let go,
Yeah.
and then Shozo was slower, so he was
Yeah,
the one that
because
always got it,
he was
bumped by the goat.
So stories like that are funny as kids.
Oh, and I can remember that time when Mama and Papa used to go to Oakland to shop during because we were going back to school. And so we all had to stay home. And so instead of being in the house, we used to lock our gates and then just sit on the fence and watch, because this is Mission now, they used to call it now. I don't get it, but it's Mission. And so we used to sit on the
fence.
and we used to see the cars go by, because that's supposed to be the busy street. And so anyway, Sue went to she got a black eye somewhere. And so my father and mother, there was another time that they took Sue to the doctor. And so then we were watching, and all of a sudden there was a funeral coming by. And we started crying. We thought she died.
Because the cemetery, just down the road, and they thought they thought I had died.
Yeah, but she was in the back. We couldn't see her.
And then those days, my mother and father had never seen a black eye. They had never seen a black eye, and so they thought they'd better take me to the doctor.
How'd you get the black eye?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was my brother.
Taka hitter.
But I thought that's pretty funny.
And then we used to sit on the fence there, and we'd see cars go by. And so all of us, we assigned or order of names. And so we'd say, oh, hey, this is, and then it was just me and the younger ones, not Chico or Sumiko. So then we would sit on the fence, and we'd watch the cars go by, and the first car would be mine, and we'd say, oh, it's a pretty car, so we yell. Next was Sumi's, and then it was shows low and high on top, and here comes up Bata Bata car, you know, real old car.
That used to make me cry.
And they would cry because they had the bata bata.
There's an old car coming by, and so then it's her car, and we all laugh. She'd be crying.
Oh, and then when we were at Tamfran Racetrack, we keep flipping back and forth, but when we were in Tamfran Racetrack, and then we underneath the stadium, that's where the mess hall was, and people didn't know how to cook, I guess, for all those thousands of people. So we were gonna have lunch or dinner or whatever it was, and the Jell-O like this, they didn't know how to make Jell-O, so it was like a gelatin, and if you threw it or fell on the floor, it wouldn't even break. So my brother, Harry, throws it underneath the table, throws it under the table and lands on my lap. So then I know my mother's watching, right? So I thought, okay. When she was looking somewhere else, because we had to behave because all the other families are there, so I tossed it back and threw it back to him, and then that was okay. But then he threw it on Haya's lap, and she started to cry. And we got in trouble. Funny things like that. And then, what's the name of the horse that you saw in Kentucky?
Well, Secretariat.
Not
But there
Secretariat.
was Man o' War and Seabiscuit.
Sea Biscuit. And then when I tell the story that where we were in camp, and so that I tell them about, so it doesn't sound so bad to the 8th graders, they won't feel so bad. But I say, I have something in common with Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit lived in Tamfran and ran around that racetrack. And I said, I did too. I ran around that.
Yeah, but we were lucky, we lived in the barracks, and they were new supposedly, but there was a lot of cracks on the bottom, so the weeds were coming up, but at least it was new, where a lot of our friends had to live in the stalls.
And my mother, the first night, you know, it's kind of like this, right? All the way down the hall. So you could hear all the other families.
Oh, yeah.
My mother's cot, in the army cot, the leg falls through a knot. So remember, it tipped over. Something. And then, you know, that when you think, when people say, well, you know, how was the camp? And people used to get lost as to how to get where. And I said, it's just like if you go to an international airport and there are all these cars, and if you don't look to see where you're, but they didn't have any signs there so far as I was concerned in Camp Hunt, designating which block it is. Well, I said, it's like that, you know. It's like a parking lot, and you better, if it's dark and you don't know where the hills or what side it is, you don't know where you live. So that's how you found your house. That's one of the things that it was
Oh,
like.
and then not only that, we were really young and not used to sharing bathrooms and everything with everyone else. You know, there was no
privacy.
no privacy at all.
But can you imagine?
Just like all the soldiers had.
Yeah.
And so
Isn't that
then when
yes?
Nikki was older, and so she liked a lot more privacy. And so she said she wanted a bathroom, or we go halfway all across the
camp.
Yeah, to go to the bathroom, because when you went to the bathroom, there was like a section here, and you had to, and there's two people sitting, and then a partition, and two people sitting. And so then, when you go to, you keep looking to see if it's empty. So everyone's always looking, because we're looking to see if there's an empty space.
Well, then, yes.
Are you talking Tanforan or Topaz?
Oh,
This is in Topaz. That's what and then they had a curtain.
No, Taffron we did
Okay.
it. And so then when we did it, well, whenever there was an empty space and you had to bow and, go to the next one.
And yeah, and then they had a little curtain, and I was shorter, smaller at the time, but the curtain is there so then you can't see the person across. but I was shorter because I was 4'5" or something, and then you could see right because the curtain comes up to the adults here. But can you imagine for 150 women, there's 12 toilets, like something like that. And for the men, I don't know how many toilets they had, but they had 150 men because there was about 300 in the block. So then, for 12 toilets, you know that. So can you imagine that nobody complained about that, and somehow nobody said that they didn't fight for food, and you stood in line morning, noon, and night, whether it was a dust storm, rain, mud, snow. But can you believe that we went? And if you have to go to the bathroom at night, well, it's from here to maybe the house over there on the corner. You have to walk there to. So, and my mother was only 42 years old. Could you believe that? She's only 42. And yeah. So
Someone got lost going. Did you get lost going to the bathroom?
well, that's when all the showers weren't built, and my mother wanted to go take a shower. So my Ahaya and me and my mother went. So we're going in this direction, and it's just crowded with people. So we kept going, and my mother said, "Let's go, keep going." So we went to the end of the block this way, and I think we took a shower at the end this way. But when we came out, instead of coming back this way, we went to the other side of the camp, and then my mother happened to see somebody, and we didn't know where we were, and the man says, "Oh," and she says, "It was terrible, Sorashi." He said, "We didn't know where we were." "Oh, Sorashi." So he brought us back all the way back to where we were, because he had been there maybe 2 weeks, and so he brought us back.
Yeah, it was a square camp at Tobacco. And so there were blocks.
Now, what'd you say? You said you're block 36.
We were at
What?
the very bottom.
So there were blocks 1 to 7 that way, and then you would go 8, 9, 10 to whatever it is, 7, and then you go again. But we were on this corner at the very end, and the guard tower is there, back in back of us, because we were the last ones. And there was a man in our block that had a dog, and he got too close to the barbed wire fence, and he was shot. Both the dog and the man
He
was
was
shot.
deaf. He didn't hear the guards
Or
saying
something,
halt.
or something wrong. And so he was killed. He was killed.
But
And
what was you were telling me this morning that, if you want to call it address, you were block 36.
apartment 6E.
E&F.
Yeah, E and F, right. So, and then my brother Chico and Harry and some people in the block, they said that you can, if the guard says you can go out a little bit, you can. It's okay as long as you had a pass, but you have to be back by a certain time. So they went out because Chico saw a map and it says Sevier Lake, Sevier. So they thought they would walk out there. So they went walking out there, but they couldn't find the lake. So they came back, but by the time they got back to camp, the searchlights were going, right? And so then they thought, well, how are they going to get in? Because otherwise they're going to get shot. And so they kind of circled the outside of the camp, so where the lights were not exact, so they were able to call. So they crawled on their abdomens, and they got under the fence. And so then we were all looking this way, and my mother was worried because, how are they going to get back in? And here they come from the back, and he says, "How come? What are you guys doing? All looking out there?" But isn't that scary? But that's what they did. They said they crawled for, I don't know how many feet, 300 feet or whatever it was, or 400 feet. They crawled so that they wouldn't get killed.
Yeah, Chico used to always get into
And then Chico was.
He was shot?
Yes, because they said,
He
yeah.
went to
Delta.
went out to work, legitimate,
Uh-huh.
but then there were some people
They
that
wanted
didn't want the Japanese,
yeah.
and they shot him.
They
He was
wanted-
one
yeah.
that got shot.
The local farmers or
want-
whatever would hire the people.
They wanted volunteers, they came and asked for volunteers to pick sugar beets for the war. They need sugar beets for the war. So he volunteered to go to, I don't know, Provo or somewhere outside of American Fork or something. And they were playing table tennis in one of those white kind of rectangle tents. And they're playing in there. And I guess they said, oh, there's jats in there. So they shot through there.
You could see the shadow.
And so then Chico got shot. And, and
So
then,
I have the bullet.
Really? You have the bullet?
Yeah, I used to have it too.
Where was he shot? Like arm?
I don't know, maybe his leg or something, but that night my mother said that she thought he had come home because she heard the door shake on the back, so she got up and then nobody was there. So she went back to sleep. Then the next day, the afternoon, we found out that he got hurt. So that was one of another story.
So I want to hear more stories about the Hayward. So what animals did you have there? So you had a goat. What else did you have?
We had lots of dogs.
Oh, really? Lots?
Lots, 10 of them at one time, I remember. It's because people that lived in the city and they couldn't take care of the dogs or whatever. And so they used to say, oh, the Haramakis have, we never turned away dogs. But I remember the dog that one dog I really remember was Molly. It was a Great Dane. It was like a horse.
Yeah. The only one I remember is Pito. That was the last one we had before we left. And Pito died while we were in camp. They notified us that Pito died.
We had lots and lots of
Do you remember any other names? For dogs?
Puppy.
I remember is Pito. That's all the one I remember. I don't know
I
why.
remember Molly.
So what other animals?
Oh, we had rabbits, and chickens. I remember I wanted a chicken. Anything I wanted, my father never said no, you couldn't do things. And I wanted a chicken. And so I used to go to this lady's house every day. How much is the chicken? She'd say 75 cents. And it was a bantam chicken. It was one that sat. It was, sat on eggs. And so I'd ask her every day. And so finally she gave up and she said 50 cents. And so I happened to have 50 cents. And so then she gave me the chicken. I got the ham, the chicken. Mm-hmm. And then she said, she gave me some eggs, some fertilized eggs. And so then, before you know it, we had some chickens. And then we had ducks. My father wanted ducks then, because we could eat all those things. And so we had ducks. And so, we ate, they ate our old rice, kogi gohan, rice that's stuck for the
Okoge, yeah.
And then that's what the dogs ate also.
Wow.
And that chicken coop that my father built saved her because she and Chico did something or other, and so she ran and she hid in the chicken coop.
Oh, she was in trouble?
Yes.
Yeah, with Chico. Yeah.
And then Chico went by there.
Yeah, he was looking like this, and here I am.
He's mad looking.
And so I was hiding in the chicken.
But he didn't see her.
Yeah, but it was scary when he's looking
Yeah, I think that is hilarious. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of things. When you have brothers and sisters, especially Chico used to always want to, I don't know, he couldn't fight Tachi, and Nico always spoiled, and so there's me or you. You and Chico used to fight all the time.
Mm-hmm. And so he would say, and he always had money. I guess maybe he used to work or something.
Oh, Chico always had
money.
Jobs.
But he said to us, if you and I would go to the store, that he to buy ice cream or a pint of ice cream or something.
No, sherbet was 2 for a quarter. It was quarter sherbet. But we had to walk all the way to
Hernandez.
town, no, we went to downtown Haywood, which must have been at least a couple of miles. And so we'd go there and buy the sugar, come home. Sure, he'd give us the one. I don't remember that, but then he used to have one for himself and the rest of
Sure.
us
But he said,
Oh, he paid for it and you two would go buy it?
go buy it. And then he'd
or
say,
else would he let, we would go and walk down there and get it.
but every summer we worked in the apricot field, cutting apricots.
She got the
No.
cut, I didn't get to.
Well, see, she wasn't good at it. Because you had to be good to cut it, and it had to be right on the,
On the-
And I was supposed to, whatever they cut, I had to lay it on the tray.
well, that's the kind of job that she could do.
Unskilled labor.
And yes, and so then I said, I want to do it, and so they said, okay. And I did it, and maybe about 5 of them, and then I cut my hand.
Yeah, but
So
we
they
used to
said-
spend the whole summer cutting apricots.
What do you mean cutting? The actual
Like-
apricot?
Opening
pit it?
You know,
Oh, to
for
pit it?
dried, for dried
Oh,
apricots.
to dry it, okay.
And
then
they
it goes in the
they put
sulfur.
it in
The
sulfur,
sulfur.
and they
Yes.
get the dried apricots that we get there.
Do you still like apricots?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I like the floppy, what do you call the mushy kind? You know, it's the kind of, what do you call those mushy
Are you
kind?
talking about persimmon?
Jam?
No, the apricots,
They're more plump, they're not
they're
quite
more
as dry.
plump and they're kind of not,
They're just too rotten.
they're more rotten kind and they used to
They're not
dry those
rotten.
and those.
Dehydrated. Dehydrated?
Yeah, and so then they taste better because they're
They're right.
more ripe.
Yeah.
So what was like a typical day, like when you got up and what did you have for breakfast and go to school or do chores? What was your days like when you were kids?
Well, I know that used to be cold, because we had just the one bathroom. And so then the bathroom, there was a toilet right in the center, so no one cared. You went to the toilet if you wanted. Everyone's doing their own thing. But we used to brush our teeth and all outside. Do you remember that? It was so cold.
All I remember is that our toothbrushes were all in the line.
Yeah.
And they were hooked, it was in hooks, but it was inside the house right by next to the
No, but when
kitchen.
we were washing our face and all, it was outside. Remember that place?
No, at that part I don't remember.
Yeah, and it was cold. And so we used to walk to school, or if it was raining or something, Papa used to take us. Or the Olmetsons, Shirley's grandfather used to take us. And that's when the school burned down. Our grammar school burned down.
Yeah, we went to Burbank across town.
And that was a long ways to go. And we used to still walk. But the first day of school, I know that my father used to carry us one by one into the shoe store.
And we used to get
And
new
we'd
shoes.
all get new shoes.
And then I think it was raining or whatever it was, and I didn't want them to get dirty. So on the way home from school, I carried my shoes home because I didn't want them to
Wow.
to get dirty.
Oh, remember when we used to live near the railroad track? And used to say, we called them tramps. It was these people that...
Homeless.
Hobos. There was one place there were hobos living under the
Hobos and tramps.
Yeah. But they knew the people that would give them food.
They had
So-
marks on the,
Well, they knew our house. So we didn't have any money. Well, at least we could give them rice or something, and that was better than nothing. But they used to come to our house.
they'd mark the houses. So other guys, they'd get on the train and other guys would come in and they'd look for the marks.
Tramp marks on the fence.
But we weren't afraid of tramps.
No, they weren't fighting.
But nowadays, you're just plain old regular people.
Somebody walking down the street you're afraid of now.
Yeah.
Wow,
Thank you.
someone sliced these.
That's right, I
Tried
can remember.
They're apricots from Saratoga, do you want one?
We had to go,
Oh, don't say.
go to the park. It was, had a
And we
nice
used to
baseball
play,
field. And we go, from where I live, we'd have to cross, there was a railroad tracks, there was a roundhouse and maintenance facility down there.
take
So we'd cross the tracks, and then there was a small copse of woods. And that's where the hobos always ran out, because they'd jump the trains right at the roundhouse. And it never bothered us a bit to go right through them, say hi, and go right out and play ball for a few hours, you know. And you see all these empty bread wrappers around. And I found out later on what that was all about. They'd buy sterno,
Oh, yeah.
and then they'd run it through
Local
the bread
produce.
and then drink it. But yeah, they weren't frightening at all. They were just guys.
Yeah.
They were just traveling from the train.
And then we used to play out there in the field, we used to play baseball or something. No, tag. We used to play tag out there. And there used to be cows or something out there because there used to be cow plops. And the cow plops were free base. So when you ran, and we were barefooted, and boy, our feet must have been like leather. We used to run, and then some of them were still wet, but it had a cover on it, so you think it's dry, but no, your foot goes into the wet cow.
Where's Janelle?
We're back to the Haramaki topics.
I know,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, where's Janelle? She's
Yeah,
been
because there
tiring.
was so many of us that we had our own
Oh
team.
my
like-
god.
Yeah,
Chocolate cup and
Yeah, we
apricot.
got, the girls
Oh my
got to
God.
play when the boys didn't have enough people.
yeah.
Didn't you say one time you were coming home at night and there was a big
Okay, I'll tell you.
Monster?
Okay, one night we had to go somewhere, and she and I were sent to go do something, and it was night. And then in those days, it was a country road, and there's no lights, right? No street lights. And so she and I went, and then we could hear this thump, thump, thump. You know, you could hear the earth, and you could feel it. And then as it got closer, I could see this great big eyes looking. And so I grabbed onto her because I was so scared.
I had to punch her off. I couldn't even move because she's grabbed
I was so
us.
scared. And then it kept coming closer. And but then when it got really, because it was huge and it was black, and it was a neighbor's cow. But it was, great big
Big
eyes.
staring eyes.
Yes.
big if you're a little kid.
Yeah, boy, I thought it was a monster.
But I remember Chico and Shoza. Shoza used to go all over the place
Yes.
because he was athletic and he was easy to get along with, and and he would go. That's why I know Chico and Shoza. They came to the rodeo, and that was out here in Dublin. So that's a long way from Hayward for them to walk.
They walked
Oh yeah.
to Row Ranch.
Well, and then, yeah, that's where they went. And I remember when we used to go to the World's Fair. My father used to go every week because he displayed
Bonsai.
Water lilies
and water lilies and lotus. And so we used to have to go, and it seemed like I was the good age for him, for him to take me because I could sort of help. Where, like the 3 older ones, no, they're too old, they could be doing other things. And so then we used to go, and then I used to, Shoza would come.
Or me.
And I used to say, can we stay today? And my father would say yes, and here we were only, I was maybe 11 or so around there. And we'd look at, that's when they had TV and all. And I think that was in the beginning of TV, TV. And I remember seeing Sally Rand, all these people there.
Sally Rand was the prototypical
Fan.
fan
Dancer.
dancer.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, see, they used to have advertising of those kinds of people, and those, because we didn't know what to go see because we were too young to know. And in fact, I couldn't even drink soda. It used to hurt my throat. The soda, when you're not used to drinking,
Yeah.
I couldn't drink even soda. So the only thing we could drink was water.
But it's amazing how my father let us he said what train to take or whatever, bus.
Well, Nico used to tell us,
how to get on the train and get to Hayward. And look at how young we were. They let us travel.
Well, they
So it's
didn't
not like
have-
today.
Yeah, they didn't have the bridge then. They had the
Ferries.
ferries that the cars took in.
So yeah, so what were your typical, he asked like, what was your typical meal? So what would you have for breakfast or?
Cheerios.
No, I can't even remember.
Whatever you wanted to eat. If you wanted rice with tea on it and you eat with
Ochasuke?
or else if you want
Leftover?
miso soup with tofu in it or something like that. So it wasn't like a regular mush kind of breakfast. We just
So what'd you guys have for lunch? Did your Bachan pack lunch for you?
Yeah,
Or-
we had to. Well, you could buy it at school. It was a nickel. Two halves for a nickel. You remember that? And then that was Balderson that lived next door that to the school lunches. And that's when I used to go to school with them all the time. They used
and
to-
it was a great big bata car, you know, it just had canvas on the top or something, and all the open windows, the really old-fashioned car, and the man used to drive like this, and she's the small, sitting in the back of this, all these windows are open, right? That is amazing, that those days, and everybody lived like that, so you didn't know, everybody lived like that, so you didn't know if you were poor or,
No,
everybody
they
lived like
just
that.
call it Starvation Flats.
That's right. I don't know if we were Starvation Flats, but in another part of Mission Boulevard was called Hungry Town.
Hungry Town.
I think
Portuguese. You had Portuguese everywhere, and everybody was a mix, right? All kinds of families, different families, Italians, Portuguese, everybody
Yes,
else.
right.
All kinds, and the thing is that we were all second generation.
Yeah, right.
And so the first generation, they all couldn't speak English anyway, Portuguese anyway. So that we all understood each other even though we didn't speak their language.
And I think that what happened also, the schools, that was, my teacher would say, because everybody can't speak English, and boy, we learned all the patriotic songs, didn't we?
Oh, we had to learn, they didn't have, now they have all kinds,
Patriotic songs, and then I think,
No, just plain learning, you don't have to know English.
that's
Because
right.
when I volunteered at the grammar school, that they started having a Spanish teacher come to teach the Spanish kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they should have learned English like we did. We went to school, you learned them.
And that's why we knew all of these songs, and so that's how you learned how to speak, because
had
because we sang all of these songs, and you had to speak. You have to speak in English, and so it was really nice as the teachers. You get kind of bored, or the kids used to get bored because they couldn't understand this or whatever. But the teacher would say, "What would you like to sing?" And then you would say, whatever you could say, and then she would say, "Stand up and sing as loud as you can." And so then when you sing as loud as you can, well, you wake up, right? And then then she would go back with the lessons again, and then you always got it was kind of thrilling that you got chosen as to, and then all you knew was the first sentence of the song, and then you would sing as loud as you can. So one time we went to Washington, D.C., and we knew all the patriotic songs, and they said, "How come you know these?" Well, it's because in elementary school, grammar school, we learned all of these patriotic songs, and that's how people learn to speak English as well, I guess.
So what were some of the neighbors like? Did you interact with neighbors? Like, was there the bully? Was there the good-looking guy?
Oh, there was one good-looking guy. He was a Marine, I remember. Remember Charlie Oldbury?
What's his name?
I wasn't that age.
What was his name?
I wasn't either, But the thing is that he's the only one in uniform that, all the other ones were Portuguese. They were just dressed any old way. But when you saw someone in a
Over?
Marine uniform, and he would come home
Is it
once
over?
in a while.
So what was his name? Charlie what?
Charlie Oldbury.
Over. And then there were, you know,
5
they didn't
minutes.
have immunizations.
Warriors up by 8.
They
Really?
didn't have
It's a
immunizations,
close game now.
and people
Yeah.
died of
Eight's not enough.
diphtheria. The person that was in your class, he died of diphtheria, huh? And then there was a girl down the street, and she told me that she died because her blood turned into water. So it must have been leukemia or
Or some
something.
kind of blood.
And people died of,
Yeah, people didn't know
died of,
anything.
they didn't, you know, with all these kinds of measles and things like that. And my brother and I were the only, of all the family, you would think that we would get all the same thing, but he and I had scarlet fever.
This shows up?
Yeah, he and I had scarlet fever and our hands peeled and whatever. And that's why they say that my blood doesn't go into the next chamber as well, because it did something to my heart. That's what my cardiologist said. But it's not a bad thing because it works. But
Yeah, did people they got polio, right?
yeah, and they had polio.
Oh, boy,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and then
Polio
there's that
was a
one,
scary thing,
yeah.
scary thing.
Yes,
And how about that boy that got that diphtheria?
diphtheria.
You know, whenever we came to his house, we used to cross the street.
crossed the
as if
street
we
on
did
the
any
other
different.
Because the other children used to tell us these things that, you know, don't stay on that side. I mean, you know how kids talk.
Was tuberculosis a problem?
I had a
Yes,
couple of
all these
friends
different kinds of things that they, look
grammar
at how
school.
far we've come. Yes.
that ended up disappearing for a couple of years.
Wow.
Wasn't voluntary back then. If you had tuberculosis, you went to a sanitarium.
Wow.
Now, we've got, and tuberculosis is eradicated in the United States. And we started getting the unauthorized immigration. And we would give them medicine, we'd give medicine to these folks, because they don't have to go to the sanatorium now. There's medicine that will take care of it. But if they don't take it, that's their business. And now we've got lots of tuberculosis.
I think they used to call it consumption.
Oh yeah,
Huh?
fat consumption is
They used
tuberculosis.
to call it consumption.
Yeah, consumption, that's what it used to be, yeah.
Wow, that was a big word.
So what else? Who else were some of your neighbors? Do you remember any of their names?
Oh, I know all of them.
Oh,
So
and
like
then,
who?
you know, another thing that the McNeils, I think it was, or maybe it was the next family, but we knew when the truck, where somebody would warn us that they went in the truck and they were going to go downtown, whatever they did, and they won't be back for some length of time. So we used to get to go next door, and they had this, maybe, I don't know how big it is, maybe 4 by 8 kind of a, and they had corn kernels,
It's
and
for
we used
the
to go in
chicken.
there,
Yeah,
and we used to swim in it.
Swim in the corn?
yeah.
The corn,
It was,
Because they didn't have a pool.
we had lots of water.
Oh yeah, I guess you had ponds.
We had ponds.
maybe she was the one that, you know, we used to follow, I don't know, but we swam in that corn.
Well, we used to
Just
be
like a ball
fun
pit.
because it was different.
Yeah.
But we had,
Walking on it.
yeah, but then we used to have the lots of ponds for the swimming because it was, the deepest was at least 3 feet.
Yes, we did.
And then it went down to about 1 feet or something. That's where in the bottom, you used to pretend you're really swimming, but you had your hand on the bottom. That's right.
Yeah.
But then when you got better, we got on the deeper side, you could jump in and all. But that was a clean.
Yeah, that was a big
It was
pool.
only for
That was a big, nice pool.
Yeah, well, that was
It was a really nice
for us
one.
for swimming.
We
So
had a
we had a
pool.
lot of things.
We had a pool in our town. Down at, it was a huge pool. And they finally closed it and it never reopened because of polio cases.
Oh.
They
Scary.
finally decided it was getting contracted down by that pool. I mean, it was a huge pool. I can remember Henry Law Park. The pool was still there when I left to go to college, but it never got filled again.
Well, ours was our own pool, you know, just our family, so there wasn't really any contamination. But then we went to Hayward Plunge. They have a big.
That's right, and she babysat us, and she took us to Hayward Plunge, this new facility, big pool, and so she took us swimming. And then they thought Harry and I were so cute or something.
Yeah.
So then this girl comes and they carry us out to the middle of the pool.
And so
she said
I
next
saved them.
She said the next thing she turned around, these kids that thought they were so cute, let us go, and we're going down in the water, going.
Wow.
I saved them.
And she saved us.
Wow.
Gee,
Yeah.
you all were.
Because really, Sunny and Susan used to be cute when they were little.
Used to be.
She owes her.
So
Kind of
she
stuff
owes
that we
you.
did.
That's
Yeah,
what
she
I
owes
said.
me.
Did any of you ever go? So were you young enough to have gone to the Sutro baths out in San Francisco, out at Ocean Beach?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Did you ever
Sutro
go out
was-
there?
That's where
I
They
went
wouldn't
there
let the-
after the war.
They
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
let
wouldn't
Asians
let,
in there. They wouldn't let
Chinese
Asians
in
in there.
Really?
The
and
Sutro.
then there was another place in Alameda that,
Oh yeah, when
Wouldn't let
Shozo.
Shozo go.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was on the football team, the freshman football team when we got out of the barbed wires, and I guess the team said that they were going to go to this
Neptune Beach.
Neptune Beach kind of pool, and so then the football players went, and maybe about four people went in, and they paid, and then when he got to the window, they said that, no, you can't go in. So then, the rest of the
There were
guys,
two other guys behind Harry.
yeah.
And then, so those two boys went in front of Harry and told those other boys that had gone in, get out of the pool, they won't let Harry in because he's Japanese. Well, Cheryl felt so badly about that, he didn't go out for a long time.
And so then all the rest of the football team that was in there, they wanted their money back, and they came out.
And a lot of other people.
Yeah, the other people, and I thought that was,
Wow.
that
Well,
was
that happened to Tachi too. That Tachi was a Boy Scout. And they wouldn't let him in, so they decided they not to, none of them went in.
That was in Alameda?
No, Hayward.
Oh, Hayward.
What,
Yeah.
Neptune Beach?
No, the Tachi.
Tachi,
Oh,
that
Tachi
was
was it,
it,
yeah.
Tachi graduated from.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I thought recently, maybe it was about 15 years ago, I thought that was really neat. That like at Hayward High School, or somebody said that, asked Chico and her if they would like their Hayward High School diplomas.
Yeah, we all went to your graduation.
And, and they said yes. And here they were.
Chico did, but I.
Yeah,
he
and
said
so,
I-
and then when I went to that graduation, well, I thought they were going to be sitting with all the other students on the, at Cal State. No, they were on the front stage. they were up on the front stage and they were being honored. And then on the local paper, it was front page.
Yeah.
And I thought, I said to Chico, and he said it was an honor or something, I can't remember the article, but I thought, why do you want your high school diploma after all these years and what you've done? And he said that was one of his first goals, was to graduate from Hayward High School. Because here he got his bachelor's,
Yeah,
he
but
got
he
his
was already a
master's,
junior.
and he was a master's.
In Hayward, he was a junior, so he
And
was been there
yes,
for a
and
long time.
he got his bachelor's, he's got his master's, and then he got his doctorate, I don't know which one, but then he was head of a department at Penn State. So I'm saying, what's so important about getting a high school diploma after all that
That
time? But
administrator was Dr. this, Dr. that. Remember that day? It was all Dr. this,
Dr.
that.
Haramaki.
And he was in that Who's Who book.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So what other games would you guys play? Do you remember?
I had one.
Oh, good.
Remember, I climbed the kitchen cabinet
see,
and on the,
Oh, yeah.
pulled out the drawers and I went up the drawers and then I climbed up onto the cupboards, the shelves, and that thing fell on.
Oh! And then all of a sudden she disappeared.
And so my father was sleeping, so I thought, oh boy, I'm really in trouble. And so I scampered out from underneath the cabinet and I ran to the old car and I locked the doors.
Lock yourself in the car.
And cause I remember Mama coming out with the iodine, you
Yeah.
know, and trying to get into the car and I wouldn't open up the door. That's all I remember.
But you know,
That's the only excitement I had as a
but,
kid.
you know, but
Keyboard.
you also did what we did because it was a hot, my mother used to wash in the old washing machine and you have to throw it through the thing.
The ringer.
And then the older people would have to put the sheets out on the lines. But then
Older people.
my brother and me and she and Haya, when nobody was looking, we would go, it was a hot day, so you'd go through the sheets and boy, it used to feel so
This is
good.
cool.
So I guess we, you know,
Made up our eyes.
we didn't, guess we didn't behave.
You just make up your things, you do what you want, as long as no one got hurt, really. You just,
Somebody got hurt coming down that corrugated metal.
oh yeah, Nico and me, because we had, from the garage, there was this metal piece that we came down. Well, Nico was heavier than me, and we were coming down. Well, Nico got
Her arm
she got really,
got
yeah.
Wow.
Only she didn't even go to the doctor, no.
Oh,
And then I got cut on my leg because I was on this side, but this, and so I still have the scar, so I should have had stitches too, but Nico, I know, used to hide her arm all the time because she used to be so embarrassed with that.
Do you remember Halloween when you were kids? What was Halloween like, or Christmas?
oh,
I
your
remember
brother?
those
I mean, your father?
outdoor- Yeah, toilet.
Those guys got somebody's outhouse that they didn't like, so this person, I guess, so they got that house and they moved it downtown on the freeway, or they obviously put it on the biggest road that they had, they put their outhouse out there.
Oh my God.
Clothes, all kinds of, people that they didn't like, they were going to get even with them. The kids did.
Trick or treat.
What'd you say about the clothes? Did you say something about clothes?
Even the clothes.
Oh,
that they-
clothesline, if the clothesline
Yeah.
was out there on Halloween, they
Oh.
they took it and I guess they hung it or
Yeah.
something.
Oh,
That's what you did on Halloween?
Well, that's
It
what they
wasn't
did.
treats,
I
it was
didn't-
tricks?
I guess the older people
That was
did,
a
but I
trick.
wasn't involved in that.
The idea originally was, you go around one night and ask for treats. If they don't give you a treat, next night, it's trick night.
Oh, 2-night
Oh,
tour.
ours, we didn't have tricks. They didn't give us candy. We just did, the boys did tricks. The girls didn't, but the boys did.
No candy.
I don't remember.
Costumes? Did you have costumes?
No, I don't think we went to different houses. I didn't go trick or treating.
But we used to hear about, all these things that the kids had done, the boys did.
But Earl, my mom talks about Santa at camp.
Oh, and camp, we used to have Santa Claus, and the best Santa Claus were people of Buddhist religion, were the best Santa Claus.
Why?
I don't know, but they happen to be Buddhists.
They were all jolly and fat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think it was
Like Buddha.
Quakers,
Like Jorge.
and then if there were Quakers or somebody that used to wrap presents or something, and they used to give us presents, huh? Even if we were 2 pencils or maybe a handkerchief, but the Quakers were very nice, huh? They gave presents to people in camp. But we had a Santa Claus because Santa Claus was secular. It wasn't. But for the
it's all
Christians it
over.
was. For the Christians it was. But I think even in Hayward, it was everybody, whatever they were, religion they were, everybody celebrated Christmas because it was
American.
secular. And even today in Fremont, you see the Muslims, they have Christmas lights. And the Hindus, they have the lights out there. So Christmas is secular, which I think is kind of nice. And so they said, one time somebody said to me, "Do you celebrate St. Patrick's?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I celebrate Halloween and I'm not a witch." And these kids say, "I don't know about that."
So what was, so you say Bachan was really nice. Why was she really nice? Can you remember
I don't
the
know.
story?
Bachan was a
thing is
nice
that
lady.
She's nice.
Inherently nice.
Yeah, but see, I remember when the kids used to come home, when they come home from school, you know, we were all hungry, you know, kids are.
Yeah.
And my mother always used to make hot rice, and so she used to make nigiri. And all the kids, you know, Portuguese people, everyone just loved just nigiri.
Yes, and then she used to make sweet potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
She used to make sweet potatoes, and they used to be in this oven, wood stove oven or something. Well, maybe that's what she made it on, I'm not sure. But when it was cold and rainy, when we come in, she would have sweet potatoes. And that was what I remember that I thought.
Did Bachan make pickles? Did she make skimono?
Yeah, pickles, yeah. She made nice pickles. She made, what do you call them?
The cucumber ones.
Cucumber ones, yes. But they were,
Oh, yeah, we used to
we call them
cut them.
cocoa. We call them cocoa.
No, skimmer. But anyway, we do the
Skimono. That's what she made.
different kind.
Yeah.
But then I remember the cucumbers
Yes.
that used to, we used to have to take the seeds out. And I remember Tracy used to really like the seeds. And I remember we had buckets of the seeds because we had taken, and we threw some away. Shows was so mad. She said that Tracy likes them. Buckets of them. But what we used to do at home in Hayward was these cucumbers. We used to cut them in half, you know, with the seeds out. And we used to
Dry them on top of the roof.
On the roof. And so when they dried, and then we could make skimmer and
Skimmer,
so
yeah.
we put
Oh.
pressure on it.
Huh.
Yeah, so that tasted good.
So, what kind of things would get you in trouble, and how were you punished?
We didn't really do that. We used to fight between us, and then what my father used to do then was we used to have to go in front, you know, we had my father and him were Buddhists. And so when we got in trouble, we used to have to go kneel, you know, sit in front of the Buddha, and to have to sit there. And then before you know it, you know, the person you fought with, you're just laughing and smiling, and before that, you make friends, you know, and that was when
And
we
we
got
had a rocking
punished.
chair, and one of the rails or something was gone. And when my mother and father and nobody was around, we used to rock it as hard as we can, and then it would flip over.
Yeah, we did. Really, we did all these things.
And then my poor mother would be sewing like this, whatever she's sewing. And then we wanted to sew, so we would get on the other side. It must have been a pain in the neck, because we used to take turns on the other side and put our feet on there too. And my mother was going like this, and we had our feet going like
It's
this.
an old sewing machine. You know,
An old
you buy-
Singer, right.
Yeah,
The
old
pedal.
Singer. You buy,
Had a treadle.
Made a lot of good stuff.
yeah. I think we still, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's the only sewing machine my mother ever had.
Did you
ever?
Do you guys remember before camp? Was there like a obon or anything like that you guys did?
Well, we lived in Hayward, so we were away from everyone.
But then what was really something that very famous, I forget his name now, but you were the flower girl for that wedding. He became very famous. One of the Kobose was one of the main reverends, or what do you call them, in Chicago over the United States.
No, it was in San Jose, and his son.
His son, that's the one I'm talking
Is
about.
the one
Became.
that's in Chicago or someplace, and he's the one that Americanized it, so there lots of other people interested in Buddhism. because of
And
him.
that one, the father who came from the came to our house and gave special services Yeah, he-
Yeah, he was a good friend of my father's.
What did you say his name was? Was it
Kubose.
Kubose.
what's his son's name? Is it Suzuki? Shinrun? No?
No, that's Zen.
Okay.
This is Kubose's the last.
Because
I think it's
well,
the-
somebody that you went to mentioned his name, huh? Kubose.
Yeah, we heard a talk, and then that Buddhist teacher mentioned Kubose.
Which
Yeah,
I,
I was a flower girl.
yeah, you were the flower girl. Yeah. And Sunday afternoons we have to be quiet. So then my mother used to put us under the willow tree, and then we had to take the strings off of string beans. Do you remember taking the string and then breaking them up, and then we used to have that for dinner. String beans,
That's
we used to
what
do
I
that
still
under
do.
the willow tree.
She still does it.
Mom did that last night.
Did they used, I don't know how to say this. Do your parents, did they have a saying? Because I know sometimes, like, I'll hear someone say something and then I'll be like, oh, that's what my mom always used to say. Like, did she ever have some, like, I know she used to say in English, be careful.
Well, she used to say, be careful. She used to say that too.
Bachan.
Yeah, Bachan used to say, be careful. Yeah.
Would she ever say anything in Japanese, like, bakatare, or... I know you always say, like, what's the red face? What do you call that?
Close game, I said.
Oh, hibikiritu. Hibikiritu, chat, chat.
Oh, yeah, makai.
Nothing like a little nap.
Oh, and you always say udasai?
Oh, udasai
Oh,
means being a
dirty.
pest. Is udasai.
Like dirty.
Oh, yeah, and then on Saturdays, I think you were part of it too, we used to have to rake.
Oh, all
Every
the time.
Saturday, yeah, every
Because
Saturday we had
We
to rake.
had people come on Sundays. I guess we never had business on the rest of the week. I don't know, Papa did bonsai, so that, I don't know, he made money that way, some way. But then he was doing bonsai all the time. That was his
Yeah,
hobby
hobby.
and
That was his cash crop. Didn't he have contracts
fish.
with some of the, like Sears?
Well, what he did was that then on the weekend, or like on a Saturday, he'd go to San Francisco and show off his bonsai and the flowers and all, and that's how people got to know who he was. And so then then Sunday was when the people that came to Hayward to look at the bonsai would come, and that's how we used to have to rake it a certain way, and it had to be. You see the lines. It had to be go this way and then go this way and this way. The whole,
that was our job.
yeah. And then you have to do it from the bamboo all the way through in a certain way. And even the parking in the front, we had to do the driveway and all, we had to do that. Then we got the sprinkler and hose it down so you could see the marking. So,
It was very artistic. I think it was very.
so then that's how we learned how to do. We had to do it a certain way. And then Papa used to do show Tachi and Chico how to do kendo. That was fencing and all these things that Papa learned because he was a samurai. So he learned all these things. That's the.
And then since they were in that certain class, of which they don't have classes anymore. But that's right after the Shogun is the samurai class, I think it is. And so he wrote poetry, and I think that he won a lot of prizes in Japan. Huh?
He wrote 3 books.
Huh?
He wrote 3 books.
Oh, so he wrote he wrote 3 books and then a lot of poetry he wrote.
Yeah, and that's how we got to know. There was a dentist in Boston that Nico knew because Papa told her about Nico being in Boston, so she went to this dentist that Papa knew from haiku. Mm-hmm. And he was Caucasian. And so when he met Nico, he fixed Nico's teeth, all his teeth, when she was back there.
And then I think Papa also, wasn't he one of the well-known people that knew Asian or Japanese art?
Well,
And
he
so
knew
then,
everything.
and so then they used
That's
to
what
come and consult him as far as Japanese art.
No, he was good at it. That's what his
I guess that class
For
did,
being a samurai,
because,
we got all these teachers teaching.
so then when we went to Japan, we asked them, how big was the Haramaki property? And that guy was standing there and he said, as far as you could see was Haramaki. And so, and then I guess they didn't work, right? That family didn't work, so all these other people worked
Yeah,
there.
but they were samurais, they took care of all these people.
So after the war, when MacArthur came and split up the property or whatever it was,
Yeah.
they didn't do very well because they didn't know how to work, because they were property owners, I think.
No, the thing is, the people that work for my father,
Yes.
the family,
Yes,
that they split so that they would get property.
yes.
But then, like for Papa, I remember that Papa got a letter from Japan. Papa was over here already. And they said that since Japan lost the war, that they're gonna split it up so that the workers got property. And so Nico and Tachi's name was in there, that they had property over there. And
Well,
so,
I still have the paper.
do you? And so that's when Papa said, no, they're not gonna ever go back to Japan. Because in those days, they just had boats. They never thought of planes. They didn't think of anything like that. So Papa said, you'll never go to Japan. So then that's what I remember. And our name would have been Jono instead of Haramaki.
Yeah, so who were the Jono? Yeah,
So
who were
that
Jono?
was the family name. But since they lost, the samurais fighting each other for property, well then their side lost, Papa's side lost. So they had to change their name, otherwise people would know they're the ones that lost. And so then Papa said that wherever they lived, the mayor finally gave them a name because where the property was, I don't know exactly what it looked like, but he said there was water around the place. The
On the
property,
mountain.
yeah, and so they called it Haramaki, like the water around it's like a belt, Haramaki. So that's what our name is. And people laugh because our name is Haramaki, a belly band, people laugh. But they're named for where they live, just like here, a lot of places, or even the Japanese people here, they all have names named
Who gave
where
them
they
the
live.
name now? Who came up with the name?
The mayor of the town.
Oh, I
where they
see.
live.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. Because he said that you live in with the water around your property, you call it Haramaki, that's where you live.
Do we know why great-grandfather left Japan?
Grandfather?
Chichan.
Oh, yeah. Because he was
He
a
was a
third
major in
Samuro?
engineering at Tokyo University. And he came here.
And he was a third son anyway, when you're the first son you get stuff, maybe the second, third, no, you
The
have nothing.
responsibility, the older ones, and he didn't have the responsibility to. So he was going to school and then decided he wanted to travel, I guess, also. And he got on this Chinese ship, and they
He was
picked,
traveling a lot.
and then they picked him up, and the only other Japanese they picked up on that Chinese ship was another Japanese person from Kobe, and those were the only one Japanese on the ship that came over. And and I said, "Oh, how did you communicate?" And he said that he wrote in Japanese, but it was the same as Chinese, and so that's how they communicated.
They didn't speak
thought
the
that was
same language, but the written is the same.
So did the older brothers die then? How was it that the land came to, because Dad had
After
to
the
sign
war,
something.
After the war, MacArthur broke up the land between all the slaves, if you want to call it.
Right,
Peasants.
but Dad had to sign a paper
Right,
of
so he-
land over to the Japanese government.
Oh.
His father.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, your father.
There
Right,
was
so he
still
probably got a
land
piece,
that we
right.
owned.
Yeah.
He got a piece, like let's say there was 1,000 acres,
But there was
divided it up, so his dad probably ended
But
up
there
with
was something
handing
that
for-
happened much later
Much later, because
Because
I
it
was
was in the late
married.
60s, because I remember that.
Yeah.
Right, because they said
No.
they did.
They were gonna build a
They
dam.
were building a drainage ditch. I remember Dad had to go to the consulate in
Yeah,
Japan,
because they said
in
that
San
did you want it
Francisco.
or did you want it, or something like that.
So that yeah, they were building some drainage system through the land. So Dad just went over there and signed it away.
So we still had it. I mean,
Or
something, because he signed it back. I mean, I had the sense you said it was sort of an eminent domain kind of thing that they were looking for.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe when we go to Japan, we should find our ditch.
So,
So
I
did you
thought-
have, oh,
I'm sorry, I thought Bachan was a poet too. Did Bachan write poetry?
Or
She did,
yes,
yeah.
she did.
Because I remember actually being at the house and there was a poetry meeting and it scared me.
Yeah.
scared you?
Because Papa taught her.
Uh-huh.
Mama wasn't that educated, because Mama's only 18 when she came over here. And so then Papa couldn't sing that well, even after we came out from the camp, because he had glaucoma. And so then he would be, saying all these things. And so Papa used to write, and he couldn't read it because he couldn't see very well. And so Mama's the one that really learned haiku from Papa, because he had to write down this poetry for him. Yeah, so then she's the one later on that they told me to come join our poetry club.
And you were scared.
Because of how Japanese people recite poetry. Like this, they kind of chant it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was told very directly to stay in the kitchen. All these old people sitting in the living room doing that. I kind of peeked at one point.
Oh, that's cute. That's good.
so Papa had a big library, right, before the war?
He had a lot of books.
Books and lots of records. I remember Humoresque.
Oh, yeah, right.
That patrol we used to have.
Yeah, it was
crank
up by the windows and we used to sit up there.
Dun, 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 dun. I remember that.
And that was all gone, right? After the war?
Yeah, they left things at the neighbor's house, and he said he was going to take care of it, I guess, and he got that. It was all gone. All this and
And they said that I don't know too much about it, but when the war started, all the samurai swords, they were confiscated.
Confidence and practice.
Whether he has some
Swords and all that.
swords and things like that, was confiscated by the sheriff's office. But when, and then,
Whoa!
We won without you.
Whoa!
Oh.
I wanted to see that LeBron's lose, because he said that's what he
LeBron only got,
wanted. He wanted
LeBron,
for
they held
Christmas
LeBron
present.
down to 24 points.
How many did Curry have?
I don't know. That's good.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it.
I didn't do the question, so.
No.
How many did Curry, how many
yeah.
points did Curry have?
Oh, got maybe 20 at most. They
Did they go over 100?
Yeah.
Did they go over 100?
No.
They
Like-
didn't.
It was like 78 points. Maybe
Altogether?
80. It was a low
Oh
score.
my gosh, that was surprising. They always try to make 100.
Yeah, they are, especially at home. They expect them.
You guys under arrest because you guys are being questioned.
They are.
Position.
Yeah, they're being,
Down here at this end, they're all being grilled by these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, we're
reporting
like,
So where were you on the night of?
so you were mentioning the swords were confiscated? I thought they were buried.
no, we had to report them. We had to.
then they took them, and then when we got back, somebody knew the most valuable ones, because they were gone. The most valuable samurai swords were gone. So then I think they said that kind of junky ones were left. But
So we
you
got
never
the
them back.
junky ones back?
Yeah, I think they were kind of, they were just, they weren't,
Ordinary sword.
they were just ordinary swords. They weren't the real beautiful samurai swords that my father
Papa
had.
used to collect a lot of antiques.
Yes.
Well, we still have the short sword. The short sword. You want to see a picture?
My mom has it.
His mother has it.
Oh.
Emma's gonna give a report in spring. We'll have to show you her trifold. It will have a picture